Welcome to Belief, Being, and Beyond with your host, Granddaughter Crow. Hi, everybody. Granddaughter Crow here for yet another episode of Belief, Being, and Beyond. And this time, we are going to not go beyond as much as we're going to come home into the kitchen, into the hearth of the home. Kitchen Witches Cookbook, which I'll go ahead and say was written in the 1900s, just because that sounds like so much fun, actually around 30 years ago. And it was the first ever kitchen witch cookbook. And I know that this book actually probably predates some of my listeners, so you guys have to go out and get that one. And then we also just released, or last year in 2024, she just released with Llewellyn, Cooking with the Kitchen Witch. I'm so excited. I know of lots of kitchen witches, and I know that there's a lot of kitchen witches that watch the show. And I love your approach to kitchen witch magic because you're not the type of person, just from what I've heard, you're not the type of person that says, you must use this much salt and this much that and that. But you actually it's a philosophy. Kitchen witchery is a philosophy, it is a magical practice, and you are doing ritual in your kitchen and you are doing magic in your kitchen. And the more sacred you make those basic acts, because what we eat at least 3 times a day, most of us, and then snacks in between or whatever. So, how much time are we working in the kitchen? And we can actually make that a ritual space. So, basically, what is your philosophy around kitchen witchery and kitchen cookbooks?
We have to go back a little bit. When I first met my husband 40 years ago, I did not know how to cook. And you might laugh by reading my books, but I did not. And I spent a whole year cooking a different recipe every day, nothing repeated. And by the end of that year, I had totally fallen in love with cooking, and I'd also discovered my inner kitchen witch. Because my family hates the fact that I don't measure anything. But I take the same approach to magic. If I'm not measuring everything in the kitchen, I can't tell everybody to go measure exactly. Same way with spells and rituals. I kind of fly by the seat of my pants a lot of times. And I can't say, stand on one foot, rub your belly, pat your head, head north, whatever, because that's not me. I'm very spur of the moment, and I respond to what's right in front of me at that time. If something inspires me, I go for it. And I think that if you are open to the energy of the universe, you'll feel those little nudges like, ooh, I could do this. That'd be fun. I really think magic should be fun. I mean, I know there are serious times when you have to have that serious moment, but ultimately, the more fun it is, the better energy you get out of it, I think.
I 100% agree. And it also is like if you're having fun cooking, your food tastes better. If you're not having fun cooking, we might need to add a little bit more salt. At least that's the way it is with me.
My mom was not a kitchen witch, but she taught me never to go into the kitchen angry. And I wholly agree, because when you do, and I've done it a couple times and regretted it, everyone afterwards starts getting snitty. That energy just spreads across the table, and then you have to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when, different people practice different magic, and what I really enjoy about yours is that it is practical, it is functional, yet it holds, like I've heard about your wonderful 5 onion soup on your, I've heard you make it
One
fun.
of my favorite recipes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
All right. I have been experimenting with onion soup for as long as I've been cooking. Every restaurant I go to, I have to taste it and say, oh yes, oh no. And so I finally sat down and started making my own. And of course, initially I did it the traditional way. But then I got to thinking, how can I magic it up? So I used 5 different onions for earth, air, fire, the spirit, all that stuff. So you got 5 things like the pentagram. Um, they're chopped, they're minced, they're squished, they're sliced, they're diced. Another 5 different ways, 5 different layers of texture. And then, rest of the flavoring is pretty simple, but the idea is you not only get layers of flavor, get layers of texture and layers of energy. Cool?
It's mindful, it's playful, it's creative, and it is super magic to not only have something that you are preparing, but to have those textures. You can taste the magic in those textures, and it gives this beauty. And then you embody the magic. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, when you eat, you internalize. Our body takes in all the vitamins we need and so on and so forth from our food. So why not internalize the energy of the food? Every single thing there, I don't think there's a thing on this planet that hasn't been somehow categorized for its spiritual, symbolic meaning in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
And there are several of them. From one culture you get this, from one culture you get that. You can choose how you interpret your food. It doesn't have to be meat means this. It can mean something else to you. A good example I give people, it's a silly one, but we always say apples are for health.
Right.
But what if somebody was standing under an apple tree and got hit on the noggin with one? Would they associate it with health?
Oh, headaches.
Yeah. I know it's a silly example, but it really kind of brings it home. If you have a different experience with that food, you need to follow that experience and that energy and not what somebody else is telling you to do.
I absolutely love it because for me, I love inspiring authenticity. I think that true magic comes through authentic expression. And what I like to say is that the creator, whatever that be, however it reveals itself to you, created each of us individually with an authentic expression, creativity, and curiosity. And if you can take those things into any of your practices, including the kitchen, that you become a little bit more of who you were meant to be, what you were created to be, whatever that is. What do you think about that?
I think that it's a growth related process. You know, Peanut butter and jelly can be special if you want it to be. Matter of fact, I had one the other day and it tasted great. I'd forgotten how good it was. Um, I think that you don't have to make it into a big spectacle. You know, my kitchen's my sacred space, and I have little things around that make me happy to look at. Are they necessarily magically oriented? No. They're pretty and I like them. And that's important too. Um, I just I want people to remember that just because you're a kitchen witch doesn't mean your magic's limited to your kitchen.
I
You
love it.
take that philosophy wherever you go. The way you treat people, hospitality, kindness, smile, a compliment here and there. All of those things tie into the very simplistic outlook. It doesn't have to be big, it just has to be meaningful. And that's pretty much my mantra.
Absolutely love that because it's like practicing your magic in the kitchen. And I will get into some of the recipes and things like that just a little bit because it's so phenomenal. But practicing the mindfulness, the texture, the 5 elements, earth, air, fire, water, and spirit, all of that, cooking it. And sometimes you say, let it rest for a day, let it be an alchemical magic, and then practice that same philosophy when you go out into the world, whatever you do. And that's brilliant. That's
I have a
brilliant.
lot of things that I put on the back burner, including books. I get ideas, but they're not ready to hatch yet. So they're in there simmering. It just kind of like my soups and my stews. I'm a real advocate of anything like chili or soup or stew, letting it sit for one day. That one day makes a flavor difference. It just boosts it and kind of bursts over the top compared to what it was the day before. And in the meanwhile, you're also letting those energies mix and mingle and play with each other and come into harmony. So it's a win-win.
I absolutely love that. And then even just the metaphors around I'm cooking up something special, or how we use those little words and terms, those kitchen terms in our life. Like, oh, well, let that simmer for a minute. Oh, he's boiling over. All of these
Yes,
types of things. And actually,
absolutely.
yeah, and bringing that magic into the world. I also like what you say about wiping your feet before you come into the house. Could you enlighten us with that basic act of wiping your feet before you enter
You
a
know,
home?
at first, when my mom used to tell people that, I'm like, oh God, Mom, really? You got a broom, you got a vacuum cleaner, it'll go away. But as I became more aware of magic, I got thinking about it. And let's say you're coming home from work and you've had a really crappy day. Do you
Right.
really want to take that energy into the house with you?
No,
No.
no.
So the act of wiping your feet is a purposeful, mindful act of wiping that out and leaving it outside so it doesn't follow you into the home. And I've got a really good story that illustrates why I do that. I had a dear friend, love her to death, and she was having just a week beyond weeks and wanted to come over and vent. And this was before I did the whole wipe your feet thing. And she just talked and talked and talked and talked and talked. Fine, we got, she felt better after she left. But then about an hour later, I started feeling cranky and angry and like kind of blue and like what? I was fine before and then realized that she basically dumped all of her psychic shit on my floor and I had to clean it
Right,
up. Now,
right.
not her fault. A lot of people aren't aware of that. I wasn't mad about that. But the wipe your feet thing came in because of that to try and help alleviate that situation.
I love it. I absolutely love it because that's another wonderful thing that I enjoy about what you do and how what you bring into the world. Because you've got over 50 books. I mean, you are just prolific when it comes to writing, but you always tend to kind of make it, tangible, graspable. Like you could actually start today in your kitchen, wipe your feet, wash your hands, clear your space, and do magic today in the kitchen with your own tools practically. And it's like, for me, what I'm saying is that a lot of times in spiritual circles, we get this feeling that there's something, this esoteric wisdom that is untangible, that we can only access when the moon is right, or when the alignment is this, or when that. And I love that kind of magic. I absolutely do. But when you can't do that, because I mean, we're here in the USA in 2025 and things are changing and they're moving. So, what are you to do but to actually make magic practical in the kitchen, outside of the kitchen? I just love the practicality, is what I'm saying, because I think that's really what we need to hear right now.
It's really fun to just walk into your kitchen and look at the things that are special to you. I
Mm.
have a wooden spoon from Greece. That's my wand. I love it. I use it all the time, but I use it especially when I'm doing cooking that has a purpose. I have a soup pot that I adore. Well, that's my cauldron, and I pull it out when I need that type of thing. So there's stuff all around your kitchen, probably all around your house, that can have a purpose or repurpose it without having to do anything other than be mindful of why you're using it and how you're using it. I tell people, just walk through your house and make a list and go, oh, I could do that. Oh, I could do that. I have bookends, pretty blue bookends that are stone. And so if I want to hold something together, I can put the bookends in between a symbolic object to hold it together.
Practical, ingenious, simple, and fun.
You just have to be a little creative. And nothing is silly and nothing's crazy if it works for you. That's
Love
my
that.
opinion. People are like, well, isn't this a little out there? I'm like, is it working? Yeah, well, fine.
I absolutely love that. You also introduce some items in, because in your cookbook around like flowers and lavender, and I'm like, whoa, this is next level culinary witchcraft. This is amazing. How did you come to add in those like
Well,
roses
later
and
on,
lavender?
when I was still able to garden, I did a lot of, I liked lavender. I love the smell of lavender. Like when you walk by it, and you feel better. Roses. I had this one little rose plant that I planted when we moved here, and it is now 8 feet by 8 feet. It just so I started looking into it. I learned how to make rose jelly, for example. I learned how to make rose wine that I let age a year and a day for friends who are getting engaged or married. Um, so the Victorian era was the cooking with flowers heyday. There's whole books that have all the edible plants and how you can cook with them. Squash flowers, you can stuff them, type of thing. So I started playing with the idea of using it in other things, and I made lavender orange chicken for my family, and or lavender rose orange chicken, and it was delicious. And now my kids ask for it. When they come, my one child lives in Rochester. When she comes home, it's like, Mom, could you make that for me? It's delicious. You wouldn't think that flowers taste good, but roses are actually very citrusy.
Lee.
Yeah, you just have to be careful. You have to be careful with the amounts. You don't want to eat perfume.
Right.
But if you monitor your amounts, you can come up with not just wonderful flavors, but aromatherapy.
True. Next level. This is next level. And also, I saw that you did some sort of like chakra pinwheels or something. I mean, just creative beyond. How did you come up? I mean, how are you? You're just playing or what? How are you? This is
I
amazing.
don't know. I mean, right now I got good news. I am writing another book, so I'm very happy about that. It probably won't be out until the end of next year or beyond, but I'm so happy to be writing again. When I finally got Llewellyn to say yes to the new cookbook, I cried because it had been so long since I'd actually written a book. And I had all of this in my heart and head and just wanted to get it on paper. And so I can't always explain the process to you. I will sit here and argue with myself over one word or phrase for an hour until I get it right. And then other days I just write, and I'll go back and go, wow, that was really good.
Where'd that come from? Yeah.
Because, I'll be honest, up until the last few years, I really didn't think that my writing was anything special. I was just being me on paper. But I do realize now that I gotta kind of give myself a little credit for being a good writer. It's not simply what I do, it's what I am. And I think that's good for everybody. Find what you are and then live it. And
Absolutely.
thankfully, people are letting me do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is a challenge I mean, here we have this author who has been a practicing witch for 40 years, an author for what, over 30 years. You're the first to come out with a witch cookbook from cover to cover, all of that. And yet you still say, I think I'm an author.
True.
It's,
It
I
really
think,
is true. And everybody has those sorts of things. So you might be a glorious painter and still go, I don't like that stroke.
yeah,
I don't like that color.
yeah. Yeah, but keep going, keep going anyway. Give yourself that grace, give yourself that patience. Absolutely. And I think that it's really good. I'll kind of go to another topic really quick with a lot of things coming out, with a lot of propaganda in the news, with a lot of AI technology, with all of this stuff, I really find that more and more people who are consuming social media and things like that are getting kind of like, but is that real? But is that person being authentic? Is that person so I think that this test for being authentic, is really, really coming right up to the top with people. Be authentic, find your voice, find what you do. And even if you are an author of, a bunch of books and everything, know that and be that authenticity. And you started doing the authenticity straight out of the gate, which I applaud you for, because
The
that's not
story of how I
easy.
got started is pretty funny. I didn't
Not,
intend to write a book.
yeah, tell
Um,
tell us.
I had gotten chickenpox as an adult. And so I
Course.
was stuck at home for a week. Now, type A personality, don't leave me in the house with nothing to do. So I went through some notes that I've been doing over the years about, witchcraft and stuff, and I cobbled them together into this little tiny manuscripty thingy that I sent it over to Llewellyn, thinking nothing of it. And they came back and said, "Well, we like this, but would you mind doing it this way?" And next thing I knew, I had a contract. I was like, I was shocked. And then I went to see them, and they signed me up for 6 more books. And I was shocked again. I'm like, okay. So it just kind of kept rolling from there. My only problem is sometimes I have too many ideas for my own good. I need to pull back and really focus on that one thing that's right in front of me, and not go off into 10 different directions. And that's what these books actually help me to do. I will write from page 1 to page 300. There's no bouncing back and forth. And every time I start a new chapter, I read from chapter 1 and then start writing chapter 2, then read 1, 2, and then start chapter 3. And it's a progress, because that way you can make sure that there's a continuity of voice and delivery, and that you're not repeating yourself and things like that. It makes, to me, it makes a better book. But I can't do chapter 1 and then chapter 13. I didn't. I can't. I'm very linear.
I think that that's a really good practice in, like you said, it's a discipline. It's a discipline, and that discipline shows through in your work, and it probably shows through in your onion soup.
Well, it's really neat what you said about AI. First off, I never use AI. I'm against it. I won't. People can laugh at me, but by God, I want the human touch, and I think other people do too.
Yeah.
I can tell when something's written in AI. It just like
Yeah.
stands out.
Yeah, you
And
can tell.
the good news is that I am seeing more employers say, we don't want AI. If we catch you writing AI, we will fire you. Because
Wow.
I actually have a mundane end of my work where I write for websites. It helps keep food on the table. And all of my clients are like, no AI. Let it, if you make a mistake, you make a mistake, but we'd rather you make a mistake than have this mechanical thing.
Yeah.
And what they're finding is that Google's starting to penalize companies that use AI. If they catch it being AI, they don't get the ratings that they should. So
You know,
it's just an interesting piece of the puzzle that I'm happy to see happening. Because for a
yeah.
while there, it's like, if you don't have AI, you'll never be able to be a writer. And I'm like, I've been a writer without it for years. I think I can survive.
That's exactly right. In fact, I know even, shout out to Llewellyn, the one that publishes all of these wonderful books and everything. They do have a very strong stance with their authors. No AI, period. Do not write with AI, period. And I absolutely love that, because it protects the creator, it protects the author, and it protects the work, and the reader knows that it's authentic. And like you said, sometimes even just having a little mistake in there is, at this point, is kind of like, oh, okay, it's real. This person's real.
Exactly.
I love that. I absolutely love that. So, it's interesting too, because I have an oddball question for you.
Sure, I'm an oddball. I can handle it.
Can one cook their way out of depression, anxiety, negative thoughts? And if so, how?
Well, I always tell people that cooking is my therapy. Um,
Right.
if I can't, like in November until probably February, I couldn't stand long enough to cook. I couldn't work in my kitchen, and I was sick, and it just made matters worse because I wanted to get into that place and play with my food. And
Ah,
when I finally could, oh my God, I felt like 100 times better. So for me, the answer is yes. I can go into my kitchen and try to let those things down and say, okay, what would be fun to do right now? What do I need right now? What should I be working on that will help this whole process? One of my favorite things to do, and you're gonna laugh, I like fruit smoothies, but I add sparkling water to them because I think bubbles have this neat magical thing about them about lifting spirits and lifting energy, and it's good besides. So on mornings when I'm feeling particularly yeah, it's a good way to start the morning because I'm not a
I
coffee girl.
I
I know.
absolutely, yeah. I absolutely love that. So it's basically also being mindful in the kitchen, not just with what you're doing, but with the recipes that you want to playfully make. And I understand that you also have like cooking for an astrological sign. Can you talk a little bit about how you correlate that and how much
Well,
fun is that?
each sign kind of has specific characteristics that are very consistent, no matter what else is going on. This is obviously a generality. But, Leos like beauty. They're big, they're bold, so their food has got to be beautiful, big, and bold. And
Yes.
that's how you start the correlation. Same thing with Pisces. They tend to be softer, more dreamy. They kind of like that whole inventive thing. So invite them into your kitchen and let them work with you to make them really happy. So
Oh.
there's, that sort of thing. Some signs aren't necessarily great at cooking. I've generally found that Scorpios are not that much, or at least the ones I've met.
Right.
Theirs is to eat and to critique.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
Yeah,
So
because go ahead.
I'm a Cancer son. My son is in Cancer. Um, what would you subscribe for me? Like if you were going to cook me a meal or suggest.
Cancer can be either out of its shell or in its shell. And so you have to think about which phase your son is in. Is he being like this and needs to be brought out? Then you have to work on finding, food that will do that for him. If he's out and needs to come back in, same thing. So just you start there.
You
You're
nailed it.
laughing.
You nailed it. You nailed it. Oh my God, I'm crying. That made me laugh so hard because you're absolutely right. Because as, Cancer, I'm like, well, I don't even really know what I like. It depends on my mood.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's soup, and sometimes I want something really hearty, and sometimes just give me a salad. And I never thought of applying my astrological sign to what that might mean for my mood, you
And
know?
God help you if you're cooking for a Gemini. You're cooking
You
for
got
two people.
sweet and sour. You got to do extremes, I suppose.
Exactly.
It's got to be entertaining and thought-provoking, I suppose.
Yeah, if there's a joke involved, it's even better. If there's a pun, use
Yeah.
it. But yeah, they're interesting to cook for.
I love that. Okay, so there is also another aspect that I would love for you to share with the listeners. You have this aspect of kind of like a clock on your plate to symbolize how you plate your food. I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly. Could you tell us a little bit more about this kind of witchery magic that you're doing with your
Well, if
plating?
you go through all the fuss of making a several part meal that's all magical, you can actually lay it out on the plate so that the energy progresses. So if you're starting at the 1 o'clock point, that is the foundation of your energy. That's where you want people to get grounded and centered in. And then as you go around the plate, the energy increases until you get to the noon spot where it all comes together and, you know, does its thing. So you're just using that space. The other alternative is to look at the plate like the four corners of creation, you know, the four element, whatever, and you can place your food according to their element, whatever, to, again, you're supporting the magic in a symbolic way. People won't notice, but you will.
I
And it's
love it.
again, it's a mindful act.
Well, because I am all about medicine wheels and the four quarters and, east and the south and the west and the north. If you were to plate your food like that, what would be the top quarter? Would you start with north or would you just align it with where the person is sitting? And what if they move? Like, give us a little.
Since the person is, it doesn't matter. You're going to want the plates to be the same all the way around.
Okay.
You know, I don't like make people sit in specific places. That's usually not a good way to start the evening. um, you just, I would say the northern quarter is the quieter aspect. It's
Okay.
introspective.
Okay.
So anything that you make that is meant to help people internalize and see the energy and how to apply it might be best in the north, where active energy is in the south.
I love this. I'm gonna just start doing that because it just sounds like fun. Plus, you remember how, when we were growing up, they told us all about the food pyramid. This is the
Yes,
witches. Go
you can
ahead.
do that too. Actually, that's really good.
Yeah, and you get to maybe it's kind of like, you see salad, it grows in the summer, so we'll put it in the south side and all of that you actually can get that or create. I just love it because you're like you open up the inner playful child within me. And I don't consider myself a cook. I don't consider myself anything bad. I just, when I cook, it turns out good. And if it doesn't, I learn. It's just like, I'm not really persnickety about it. But when I started looking at the different recipes that you have, I'm like, oh no, this is another level where this would be fun to eat for Samhain. This would be fun to eat on a special occasion. This would be fun when my chakra system is off. It's just magic.
And you can have, if you've got a few people that like to cook, and you can do things like here, we'll get a big rack of ribs, and I'll take one half, and my son takes one half, and we each treat it our own way. And then people can taste it and see what they like, and so on and so forth. You can do that magically, where you have each person choose an intent of what they're making in the same food group that you're going to share. So you take, chicken, 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 and this person says, okay, this chicken's for health, this chicken for that. And then you put it all on a plate and taste the difference
Oh,
because
wow.
each person makes it their own way. See what I'm
Absolutely.
saying?
And I absolutely love that. And you also mentioned it's good to put a little ingredient card next to the dish that you've created just to be conscientious of people's allergies and stuff, which is just another witchy thing, beautiful, thoughtful, mindful thing to do.
I mean, if you tell people in advance, if you got a couple people, just two or three people coming, but I like on buffets and potlucks, absolutely. It's just there's too many chances of somebody having an allergic reaction to something without you even, trying to do anything. You don't know what people are allergic to. Sometimes people don't know what they're allergic to.
Right.
So it's just a nice way to say, I'm being thoughtful. Here's the ingredients. And of course, at that point, they're like, okay, I'm going to make this at home.
I absolutely love it. Then they steal your recipe off of your ingredient card and try to go ahead and make it
Yes,
themselves.
exactly.
And you're just like, just buy the book, people. Just buy the book. All of my stuff is out there. I love it. Yeah, it's really amazing. And I think that, being mindful and holding it as a philosophy that you implement into you're cooking, like I said, we all find ourselves in the kitchen. If people were to, before you cross the threshold of your kitchen, relax, take a deep breath, and realize that that's your laboratory and you are an alchemist, or you are a kid, or this is your playground, and then go in there and you're not spending any more time, you're just being mindful and you can increase your magical practice. What do you have to say about that?
I am such a hippie. If I could, I would put up beaded entryways to the kitchen
Yes,
because as you walk through them, it kind of acts the same way as the door.
yes.
As you walk through them, they go backwards and just wipe over you. So if you had, white ones with purple ones for higher self or whatever, I would love to do that. My family would kill me, but I would love to do that.
I think you should. I just think that you should just do that. You could get bamboo ones. Those would be really cool too.
Okay, idea. Go shopping.
Idea, go shopping. Well, I just am really grateful that, so I'm really grateful that you're bringing again, once again, this information back to us because no matter where you are at in your life, in your practice, listeners, we all eat food and being mindful is really good. And then finally, it's like never ending because you can start with a can of, like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and then you can move into even more mindfulness. And so then here's
You can
another
draw runes in your peanut butter.
draw runes in your peanut butter. You know what I like to do, Trish? I like to, way back in the day, I used to eat boiled eggs. Every once in a while, just get a carton of eggs, boil them up, put them back, and put them in the fridge, and I could grab one for breakfast or whatever. And I would put like little peace, love, joy
I
on the
love it. It's perfect. I love it.
and then let those sit for 24 hours like Trish says, let it sit in your fridge and then you embody that. And I love working with runes as well. You could put like a Suilo, sunshiny day and all of that kind of you can kind of draw from whatever other magical practices, whether it's runes or whether it's just positive words and affirmations or whatever. So I guess you're saying it's okay to play with our food. In fact, it's a
Absolutely.
must.
I am absolutely for it. Play with your food. If anybody laughs tough, it's your kitchen.
I
You
love
know,
that. I love that. And so talk to us just a little bit about prep and cleanup. Like, do you set sacred space? Do you purify? Like, how do you get into the space when you're cooking to signal I am doing this ritual magic spell, or does it just come organically? Tell us a little bit about what that looks like in
my
action.
stove has to be spotless. I'm like crazy. I have a stove that I have, well, it's a replacement of the one I've loved for 10 years. It's a big ass, thing. And I have to clean it before I do anything like that because to me,
Yeah.
the oil and so on and so forth, it doesn't represent the right kind of energy. It's old, it's nasty, things like that. So that's step one. I also make sure that the area that I'm putting out all my ingredients on has been cleaned down. If I'm feeling really fancy, I'll grab something like rose water or orange water and, make signs and images on the countertop and let it dry because nobody can see it. Smells great, and it serves a purpose. Um, so those are the types of things. I keep them easy because everybody's got very little time. You don't have time to be doing a lot of rigmarole when you're also trying to get dinner on the table.
Right.
So my stove needs to be cleaned. That's practical. Countertop needs to be cleaned and organized. That's practical, but it can serve dual purpose.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I also, just a side note, I do, I'm I'm a medicine person, so I work a lot in with the natural world, and I heard you speak a little bit about the beauty of a tree and that when you are outside, let's just take the kitchen outside and call it a picnic. If you have a lot of people come over, you can stand by a tree and soak in that information and that strength, and that it brings you new ideas. Or talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, I think that's hard. I figured out that I've been a pagan my whole life. I just didn't know it.
Right.
When I was a child, I was not a happy child, and my happy space was the woods. And I would go out there and I would catch guppies and walk by the water and sing to the trees because the trees didn't mind if I was off tune. And that's where my relationship with trees started. Every tree has its own kind of being.
Yes.
So right now I'm growing fruit trees because I'm trying to put things in my yard that are edible. The more
Yes.
things I can put in my yard that are edible, the better, in my opinion. And so the fruit tree is going to have a different kind of vibe. Probably a more playful one than, say, an oak, which is
Right.
more grounding and solid and, enduring.
Yes. Yes.
But it's there. And the neat part, if you research trees in forests, they actually communicate to one another through their roots.
Right. Right.
What a beautiful networking concept.
Yes. Absolutely. You know what's really interesting to me is that I don't know how to articulate it any better than I am, and hopefully I'll figure out a better way to say this. But it magic can be embodied, and until it's embodied, you don't get the full expression of the magic. And so, with cooking, walking, singing in the woods, to me, that sounds like embodiment of magic versus a conceptual idea. So, what do you think about embodiment? And mind you, I'm still struggling with how to articulate this concept. So as an author, what am I trying to say?
I would say, I'm probably not going to say this well either. There's such a thing as moving meditations in the Far East. You can walk, you can dance, you can sing, you can paint, but it can become a meditative practice. And what that does is it engages more than one sense. The more senses you engage, the better quality of integration you get in terms of energy, because we're very sensual people. So add that touch, add that smell, listen to music, whatever you can do to make it all into one harmonious whole that's kind of like a cocoon around you and just can seep into your aura. I like the visualization of my aura becoming, sparkly and glittery. I love glitter, by the way. Those types of visualizations because, obviously the glitter and white is more for cleansing, but you can also alter the colors depending on what type of energy you want to absorb. I mean, throughout the day, there's all sorts of crap that gets thrown at you. So when you get home, take a minute to find another color and go with it.
Yes, I love that. You know what? I think that that's a really good way to articulate it is that moving through life or cooking as a walking meditation that inspires and brings inspiration to all of your five senses as much as possible causes just really kind of an ascension. For me, I'm just like, whoa, I feel more peace. I feel settled. I feel energized or whatever it is that I'm going for. But I like that five senses thing.
Well, think about it. Don't certain smells evoke memories or certain
Absolutely.
touches and textures or something that you hear on the radio? All of that is still in us. So knowing that means we've got a lot of ability to build those memories for ourselves, those memories that we can call on and use. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. If it's a process, it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
Well, it may not happen in a lifetime, um, but we get there.
We get there. We get there. Trish, thank you so much. How can people find you? I know that all of her books, just look her up. All of her books are everywhere. You can find them on Amazon, Llewellyn, go to Llewellyn Worldwide, all of that. Probably just go down to your local metaphysical bookshop, ask them to order it in if they don't already have it on their shelf, and and be able to engage with this cooking stuff, especially because we're starting to head towards more of a indoor, fall and autumn and snow, and it's a really good time to play in the kitchen. But where can people find you?
Well, if you just look me up on Facebook, that's the easiest place to find me. And on my posts, you will find a link to my Substack blogs, which are brand new and just starting to grow. But I'm trying to reach out that way too as time allows. I'm juggling the new book, which, by the way, will be put out by Red Wheel Wiser next year.
Congratulations.
So this is going to be so cool. You guys are going to love it, but I don't want to let too much out of the bag too
I
soon.
know, right?
It's hard. It's like sitting on a present for somebody that you know they're going to love and you want to give it to them right now, even though their birthday's 2 months away.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's the
yeah,
same
yeah.
type of thing. But I want to keep that silent energy to help build what's cooking inside of me. But yeah, the process is crazy. I'm having to relearn a lot of things in my life because I no longer have a gallbladder and I no longer have a colon. So my entire way of living has had to change. And so my spirituality is going through big time alterations. And some of that has to do with my cooking and what I can actually eat, and things like that. I'm still trying to figure it out. I got to tell you, it's been almost a year and I'm still kind of going, what happened?
Yeah.
But you can look at your life and anything that comes into it and say, okay, how does this affect my spirit? What do I want to take out of this experience? Am I learning strength? Am I learning confidence? Am I learning to say, I need help? That one's hard for me.
Uh,
And all those things are all about more than just kitchen magic. It's about who you are down to your toes. As you said, be authentic. I had to tell people, I said, look, I'm going to have really crappy days. I'll tell you ahead of time, but I feel them. I know when they're coming because I'm still blue and like, I think my body actually went through mourning for
yeah.
parts that are no
Okay.
longer there. I know
Okay.
it's a weird theory, but it's there.
I agree.
Um, and I'm still kind of dealing with that. So I would rather tell people, hey, look, I'm having a crappy day. It's not you, than have them wonder what the heck's going on.
Yeah.
And that too is part of magic and spirituality because you're being culpable. Saying, look, it's not you, it's me. Just so you know, everything will be fine. Uh, it, I don't know how to express how many different levels of things that it touches in your life when you really start just being the magic instead of doing the magic.
Drop right there. Be the magic. Stop doing the magic. Be the magic. How I like to say that, Trish, is I don't practice magic. I throw that shit down. Period.
I love it. That's beautiful.
I ain't practicing, people. I love it. But I love it. Be the magic. Be the magic. And, you also speak just now. I really want to honor that about the resilience of your philosophy, paganism, your belief system, and your openness to spirit to change when your body changes, to embrace that because so many people have to adapt to different things throughout their life.
Chronic
And
pain, as an example, people with chronic pain, how do they move through that
yeah,
spiritually? What can they do for themselves, at least to keep their mood up? The pain may not go away, but how you deal with it can change. You know, you can either sit and go, oh, woe is me. I was having that day 2 days ago. Or You can say, all right, I'm in pain, but how can I move through this and do something to at least make me feel better emotionally?
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it's the simplest thing, like preparing onion soup.
You're telling me I need to come visit you and make onion soup.
Absolutely. I'm hungry. I love it. It has been an absolute true honor. Listeners, I am going to put her Facebook page as well as her Substack down below. So please check that out. You can always support authors through giving them a good review wherever you review books on Goodreads. If you and I found this, if when I review something, a book on Goodreads, sometimes it translates and it goes to other places, like it'll end out on people's pages and things like that. So Goodreads is a good place to do. Just review the book, share the book, and have fun with the book. Is there any last things that you want to tell the listeners about anything?
Well, first, I'd like to thank them. You know, they've given me years of joy that I wouldn't have had if I wasn't
Mhm.
writing. Also, remember that while it might be great to get accolades and that from 110 people, it's the one person that really needed your help and support and your words that matters most. That's where you learn quality versus quantity. And that goes for writing too. You
Okay.
know, when I had my very first book signing, nobody came.
Mm.
I was devastated. You know,
Sure.
here I had my pretty table and Victorian grimoire all set up, and I was dressed in Victorian clothes. And I started packing up, crying. All of a sudden, I saw one woman coming through the store holding a copy of Victorian grimoire like it was her life, with dog, you know, all the
Geared.
posters
Yeah.
and stuff. And she said, I'm so glad I didn't miss you. Your book has been my best friend for the last year.
That's what it
Well,
is.
I cried, she cried, and then we sat and talked. And she'd had a really rough year, divorce and other things. And for whatever reason, the material in that book, the practices in that book helped her get through. And that day I learned Victorian Grimoire could have never sold another copy. It had done its work.
I love that. That's beautiful. That is spoken like a true author, that you're literally writing for that one person to strengthen them, encourage them, maybe explain things to them that will help them explain themselves to themselves or all of that. You're just a jewel. I am just like I'm just adoring you. I really appreciate you and I really thank you for taking time because I know that you've had a really difficult year and I'm really excited that you're getting back into writing. This will be good
I
for
hope we
us.
can keep the train going, but I'm trying to spread it out and just do what really seems timely. I'm hoping next year to do something on from garden to table. So you can
Mhm.
start growing your plants magically, harvesting them magically, preparing them magically. It'd be so much fun to do, but
Absolutely.
that's in the future.
It's in the future. That's one of those things that are on the metaphoric
Back
back burner. Exactly. So, you guys, thank you so much for listening into yet another episode of Belief Being and Beyond. I've just had the best time here. If you guys want to connect with the show, have a comment, I can always get them over to Trish. So you can text the show, you can like, subscribe, comment, whatever, notification bell, whatever. I really only like I just learned from Trish. I only want those listeners who actually are getting something out of this. The numbers don't really matter, but I really appreciate all of you who have tuned in and just remember the next time you step into the kitchen, take a moment, wash your hands, wipe your feet at the door before you go in. Take a moment, wash your hands, and be mindful that you are about ready to be a kitchen witch if you choose to, even with peanut butter and jelly. So, anyway, you guys, thank you so much. I love you, and we will see you on the flippity flip.